And they were like, you have another sister that you don't know about. You have a secret sister.
I've been dressed in pink leotards and a diaper doing 30 singing telegrams in February in Chicago.
The only person who was there was John Houseman, who was the founder of the school.
And now you're a Disney princess, is that right? Am I phrasing that correctly?
That's absolutely right. And that's another wish I had. So the universe, gives you what you want in mysterious ways.
Love, love, love. Oh, love wins, love wins. No, because love is conditional. Because love is based on the contingency that you can accept that person for whoever. It's about forgiveness.
Right.
That's what America needs to find.
Yeah.
It ain't love.
Because I don't know if you know this, but I think very few of us in the world have found a dead body.
Probably not, and probably not under the circumstances that I found it.
Sure, so what was the deal?
Join us for all this and more on At the Elephants with Rob Morris, available now on YouTube and iTunes podcasts. Share, like, subscribe, now. Come on, get to it. Do it, you want to.
Says I better get used to the gas.
Hey everybody, and welcome to At the Elephants. I'm your host, Rob Morris. Got a great show for you today. Two guests from the Liberal Arts Academic Program at University of North Carolina School of the Arts. I have Dean WILCOX, who's currently the presiding dean of that academic program, and celebrated poet Joseph Robert Mills. Got Joe Mills on the show first for you. I want to say about the Joe Mills interview two things that are kind of a drag, and they're both totally my fault. First thing is, I had the wrong pattern on when I recorded the interview, so quality is not what it usually is, but it's still totally listenable. The big drag is I lost, for the first time in At the Elephant's history, a little piece of our interview, the last third. In the export process got cut. We took a little break, so it was segmented, and in the last little bit we got lost, which is really a drag because we talked about some great things. One of the things that we did discuss in regard to Joe Mills is the endowed chair that he occupies at the North Carolina School of the Arts. Joe Mills holds an endowed chair called the Susan Burress Wall Distinguished Professorship in the Humanities chair. Now, for those of you who don't know how an endowed chair works, I'm happy to tell you that I got Joe to very articulately explain how it works to me. And then I lost that part of the interview. So let me try to convey how it works. Basically, a bunch of people gather and raise money, and they put that money in a chair. And then Joe sits in that chair and teaches from it, and then takes home the money. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. That's what I got from what he said. If you think I didn't get that right, you're welcome to hit him up. He loves to hear from people. So, getting right to it, for those of you who are not acquainted with Mr. Joseph Mills, Joe is the author of a number of collections of poetry, including This Miraculous Turning, which is winner of the Roanoke Chowan Award for Poetry, Sending Christmas Cards to Huck and Hamlet, Love and Other Collisions, and Somewhere During the Spin Cycle, all of which are available at his website, josephrobert.mills.com. He has a lovely wife, Danielle, who teaches at the Art Space School here in Winston-Salem, and two lovely children, one of whom I'm happy to say I got acquainted with during UNCSA's Acting Out program last spring, where she was one of my students. And I have to say, the Mills family across the board, great folks. So let's get right to it.
I am from northern Indiana. I'm from a town called Fort Wayne, which was a factory town growing up, but the factory closed down. So, and then we moved back and forth between.
What kind of factory?
It was an international harvester. It made scouts. It made travelogues. It made.
Huge for that neighborhood.
Yeah, it was great, and I thought I was going to work in the factory. Everybody worked in the factory. My dad worked in the factory. My sister did, and I thought that would pretty much be me. And then 1980s, everything shut down up north.
Yeah.
And then we moved around a lot there in Chicago, but I'm basically from the Midwest, northern Indiana.
Gotcha. What took you out of there first?
Hated it. I just couldn't wait to, and this will be one of these things where I'll say, well, maybe you should take that out, but Indiana is a good place to be from because every place else is so exciting. It's like, wow, you've got mountains, you've got an ocean. It's flat. It is, when I was growing up, so conservative in all of its views and not in a good way. And I just felt absolutely claustrophobic, and I had to get out of there.
I grew up in Central Texas, so I can relate to the flatness and the conservative nature and the you go somewhere else. And not only that, it's also one of those places, I don't know how much you get this from Indiana, but it's certainly a thing in Texas. You go somewhere else, it's not exotic, but everyone else thinks it is because they've heard Texas and they're like, ooh, horses and cactus. And I'm like, no, I lived in the plains part. I lived, imagine Kansas. It's the same. Like, there's a big section of it that's like that, and you have to explain how boring it really is.
We went up there a couple of years ago, and my son was like, hey, what's that? And we're like, well, that's corn. And like 50 miles later, hey, what's that? That's still corn, buddy. It's all corn for like 200 miles. That's all we got.
Right. We do it well.
Yeah, we do. But, my wife used to think I would exaggerate about my hometown. And then the first time I took her there and we drove in, she went, there's a feel about it.
Right.
And, all my family still lives there. They love it. But I just don't.
So what did your pops do when the factory closed?
My dad is one of those kind of American success stories. He's just amazing. He basically started as a sweeper and worked his way up to being an executive, worked his way into management because he...
At the factory?
At the factory. And he realized he kept getting laid off, and he realized management wasn't getting laid off. Hey, I want to be management because that is the way we can kind of survive.
Smart fellow.
Yeah, and he worked up into being a kind of high-powered executive, but everybody else was working on the line or doing kind of other things. I grew up with a lot of people who were really great with their hands. And stripping down motors and stuff like that. And I wasn't,
right?
But they were, and so that always really impressed me mechanically. Like, they were it was a culture that they all had in their garage, all these coffee cans full of nuts and bolts and stuff, and they look at it and go, oh yeah, I got one of those. Let me go get back and get you one of those.
That's my stepdad.
Yeah, pretty much they can fix anything.
Yep, that's what we say about him.
Yeah.
So then when the factory closed, did he have to find another place to do that?
He did, and so he ended up kind of going out to Utah to work as a consultant. There was a job out there he got hired on, and then they ended up kind of laying him off as well. He reinvented himself, and then he had this really good kind of second career. It took him to Scotland. It took him to all these places. That was really quite impressive. And so that got him out of Indiana, and that was
he probably
good.
wouldn't have gotten to do all those things had he stayed at that factory, had it been in business.
No, he would still be there, and we'd all still be there, and I might still be there.
Really? You think so?
No.
Yeah,
I
was not buying that, man.
Yeah, it's like, I don't believe that.
It's a nice dream, but no, I don't think so.
No, I couldn't wait to get out. I couldn't wait to travel.
So where'd you go first?
West. I read all these Westerns growing up. I just wanted to go west. I wanted to live west. And then I just traveled as much as I could, and I still do. That's pretty much what we spend our money on, is going places.
Right.
So, and I remember talking to somebody who said, well, once you've raised your kids and retire, if there's a little bit of money left, maybe you could travel. And it was like, yeah, no, that's not happening.
That's working in a coffin.
That's doing it exactly opposite. So.
Right. Absolutely. So, where'd you go for undergrad?
So for undergrad, I went to Chicago.
And you stayed in Indiana all the way through high school?
Back and forth. There were a couple years I lived in Chicago. Then we moved back.
Okay.
The factory they transferred him up to headquarters in Chicago, and then moved him back to the factory to close the factory down, literally. And then I went to school in Chicago. So I was bouncing around northern Indiana and Illinois a little bit.
And then you headed to undergrad
I did undergrad in Chicago, and then I started heading west. I went to Utah. I got a degree in New Mexico. I went to California and got a degree there.
What are you studying at these places?
I'm studying literature. I'm studying American literature, English lit, because I was reading all the time. You know, it was funny. As an undergraduate, I was undecided, like business, economics. I don't like these things, but I thought I had to have something practical.
Sure.
I didn't think you could actually do an English degree.
Right.
Why would you do that?
Yeah.
But that's what I ended up doing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how'd you end up in Bordeaux?
So I'm in California, and I am working on my PhD in American literature. I don't really speak French. I am in the mailroom, and the departmental secretary, administrative assistant, comes in for a cigarette, and she's there having a smoke, and she says, "Joe," she's got this kind of cigarette voice. She says, "Nobody's gone to France this year. We had an exchange with this French school that had been set up decades ago and was just still kind of running." She said, "Nobody's applied to go to France next year. You want to go?" I was like, "Sure, yeah, I'll go." My thesis advisor said, "Don't do it." Everybody else said, "Don't do it. You'll get off track. You won't finish. Why would you do this?" And to me, it just seemed like too good of an opportunity to pass up. So it was great. And it was absolutely this just kind of, you know, you don't know where life is going to take you. Because she was having a cigarette at that moment and saw me. I ended up going to France, where I met my wife, changed my life. You know, all of that.
Yeah. You know, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Your whole life changes, you know. And I went over there, and my wife, Danielle, you know, I met her, and my whole perspective of life changed. And she was laughing at the time. She said, "You know, you Americans are funny because you come over here and you think it's like a big vacation that's not going to change you. But traveling changes you. Spending time in a country changes you."
So what's the distinction between pre-France Joseph Mills and post-France Joseph Mills?
Well, I got married. There was that. That's a really good question, pre-France and post-France. It was like, and this happened right when I was turning 30. So
how long were you there total?
I was there for a year.
Gotcha.
And I was supposedly teaching over there. And I say supposedly because all my lessons were done for me. And I was teaching basically how to speak English, and your lessons are finished. You go and you talk to your students, and you don't really have much work to do.
Right.
So you had a lot of time to explore and mess around and do other things. And I think that's a really good question. My post-France Joe would be, I think, more open to experiences, less narrow-minded. Although that may not even be true, too, because I absolutely wanted to travel before then. But I think I had a better sense of who I was when I came back. So
how much of that do you think, you know, was it mostly me and your wife that did that to you? Or was it also the experience of how much is each one, you know?
It was I think it was the experience of being there. It was the experience of stopping my whole program, and I reached a point that I was willing to not come back and give it all up and just say, I don't want to do this anymore. And kind of really reevaluating my life at that point and saying, what is it I really want to do here? So that was invaluable. Sometimes you have to step away and get outside of yourself.
Right.
And kind of then look and see what's going on.
So you got married in France?
No, she came, what happened was, she decided to come over here for a little bit, and then we ended up getting married very quickly, like 3 months later, something silly. So we didn't actually get married there.
Gotcha. And you came back, and where were you living when you came back? To California?
In California, and we were living in Oakland, in the San Francisco Bay area.
And how long were you there?
Probably, I don't know, 5 years.
And then you came straight out here?
And then we came here from California and never lived in the South. The job opened up at the school. We came out to check it out, and we're just kind of stunned at the school in the area. It was really great. And so we're like, well, we'll come here for a couple years.
Right.
2 years.
Yeah.
And then we're like, well, let's come up with a 5-year plan. 5 years.
Yeah.
We've been here like 16 years, 17 years.
I just talked to Bob Francisconi last week, and his plan was 1.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to
You know,
stay.
Yeah.
No.
He was just like 1 year. He was working, had a whole thing. He's like, I'll just do 1 year, check it out. 38 later.
Yeah, and it's like, that's not going to be us. And then that is. And on the one hand, you think, how could that happen? On the other hand, whenever we look to go, and we do look to go, you think, why would I leave? Love my job, love the school, great place for the family, huge opportunities for us, great community. It's like, why would I leave?
What else are you looking for?
What else am I looking for?
Yeah.
So,
and you travel, so you still get to keep it fresh, and you don't feel stagnant and kind of boxed in. That's good.
absolutely.
When you met your wife, what was she doing? What was she working on? What was she working on that was able to move to the States?
She was also on exchange from her university.
Oh, okay.
So she was teaching over there. She was actually kind of my boss in that she was the coordinator for all the lecturers who had gone over there to teach. And so she was actually going to go to Africa to work for a nonprofit there, and was kind of pursuing that idea of a career, at least the next kind of life phase. But she too is very open to let's go off to this new thing. Let's try something else.
Yeah.
So
Where do you think that comes from in you when you say the rest of your family still lives in Indiana? Why is Joe the roving puppy?
I don't know. Maybe because I'm the youngest. Maybe because I'm because my experience for my family is very different than my brother and sister.
You got one brother, one sister?
I have one brother, one sister. They're both 5 and 6 years older. And when I was younger, my folks divorced. And that didn't happen when they were younger. So I think they have more of a sense of community and stability, or maybe not. Maybe the exact opposite. They want to stay there and make that community. But I don't know. I always, growing up, it's like I read Westerns and I wanted to be a mountain man and go with my horse and my gun up into the mountains. And because I'm also very much an introvert.
Yeah.
So.
Sure. Do you think that is a common quality of poets?
That's a good question too. Probably.
Think so? I want to jump to that conclusion, but I don't want to be unfair.
Yeah, no, that probably is. People don't believe that I'm an introvert because of the way I teach and the way I read and the way I perform as a performer.
Right, but a lot of stand-up comics are incredibly introverted. Once they get off that
Once
stage,
you get off the stage, you're that's it. I don't want to kind of talk to you. I want to look at you, and it's like
I prepped that.
Yeah. That's or in the classroom, I'm here to teach, and as soon as I walk out of the classroom, man, please don't talk to me.
Right. You have your required office hours.
Yeah, and you can come see me, and I'm more than happy to talk to you. Maybe.
I like more than happy.
Maybe. So, and I think for writers, it's essentially an isolating type of craft. There are very few good movies about writers because writing is fundamentally boring. It's boring to watch. You're just sitting there.
It's hard to make a montage.
Yeah, it is. It's like
you can only pan across them and the keys so many times.
Almost all movies about writers are about them doing something else, or like in their imagination, or their drug addiction, or their affairs, or because the actual, unlike say painting or dancing or movement activities, writing is really boring and it's very isolated. So you just got to sit there.
Right.
So I think if it doesn't attract introverts, it's a good career for introverts because you don't need anybody else, especially if you're a poet. I don't even have to collaborate.
Right.
I don't have to collaborate with like directors and actors and all of that. You guys all got to work together. I don't have to work with anybody.
Right.
And so that's nice.
What's it like being a poet in 2015?
It is.
I'm gonna admit to you, I did think of this question before.
What's it like?
Because I have a friend of mine who is who I don't know if you know. I'm sure you do. You know Tony Jenkins.
The name is
He's
familiar,
a
but I'm
third
not
year
putting
in the
it.
drama program. But he's an incredible poet. And you know he's got he's put himself out a book, and I've seen him a bunch of times. He's so amazing, and we've had so many conversations about like what it means to be a poet now. It's such an ancient art form.
Yeah.
And yet this is such a diluted time of media. You know, there's just so much and it's all available. So where does that put you? Is that an unfair question?
No, it's not an unfair question at all. It's the same question I asked you when we were starting up, which is, why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And I think that's absolutely the same question. I do it because it gives me pleasure. I don't do it because I'm going to make any money at it or have any expectations. And I guess I'll answer this question in a long way. Pretty much, I was thinking about this yesterday because I went in to talk to a bunch of dancers. Pretty much a lot of the good things in my life have happened when I have given up expectations. The reason my wife and I got together and have had this long relationship is because we each thought that we were in Europe for a year and that we were just having a kind of fling. Just the kind of course we're not going to get together, we're just going to be here, let's enjoy each other's company, and then at the end of the year we'll go our separate ways. And because we had that idea, we were absolutely generous with each other and open, because we didn't think we were going anywhere, and so we didn't have to be false or try to please or what's going to happen. There was no anxieties. We were absolutely, let's enjoy ourselves now. And that has continued on. So we had given up any expectations. So as a poet, I have no expectation that what I'm doing is going to be read, that is going to get me anything, I'm certainly not in it for the money or the prize or the fame. If anything, when you say that you're a poet, people get really nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're like, oh, is that, I need to watch what I say around you, or you must be weird, or you're going to be intense or something, you know. So I get all kinds of great introductions like, you know, he's a poet, but you can talk to him. Or, you know, he's a poet, but he knows his sports. It's okay. It's like... So do
you know your sports out of obligation, or do you?
No, I love sports.
Okay,
I absolutely love sports, and I have to. That's a good question too. I'm posing.
I was gonna say maybe he's.
No,
maybe
I saw your Facebook post. I saw your Facebook post about Panthers. Go Panthers! It's you know, I'll give you my number if you have sports questions. You can call up and say, what should I say?
Well, it's just so rare that I have an opportunity to reach out to somebody for help. I feel like there are people that could help me in those moments, but all I got to go off is that cap.
Yeah, well, that was, you read the clues and you
got lucky.
You got lucky.
They could have been not playing today, and he could have had some other team he liked. I don't know.
So you did get lucky, because once I got really annoyed. I was car shopping, and the guy started to talk to me like we're just a couple of golfers and all this, and I couldn't figure out what he was doing. And I realized the hat I was wearing was a Strata. Which is a kind of golf ball. So he thought I was a golfer, but I'd actually stolen the hat from my father because I just take his stuff. And so he was reading the clues but misreading them.
Gotcha.
And I was like, I hate golf. Golf is stupid. So maybe that should
keep asking me?
Yeah, it's like, what are you? We're not a couple of golfers.
Forehead?
Yeah, it's like, I'm not that man. Why are you doing that? But other sports I absolutely love.
What's your favorite sport?
Soccer. It's probably my favorite sport. I played a lot of soccer when I was younger.
Tough sport to love as an American.
It is a tough sport to love, and it's fascinating to watch my son grow up in a soccer culture that didn't exist when I was younger.
But also, and this is an interesting thing, I think, I would venture to say the early 90s is when it really started kicking in, the soccer after-school programs.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, we couldn't do football with the really little kids. That was, like, going to be an issue. So it's like soccer's a little bit safer. A lot of running. They can all do that. And yet, I don't feel like it ever pushed through the permeation into the higher generations. Like, some of us played soccer when we were little kids, and we could give a damn about soccer now. Like, I just feel like still as Americans, we may like it more, but it still pales.
It does, and it's changing. But what is odd is that now you have a couple generations who all played soccer when they were younger, and when I was younger, that wasn't the case at all. We were It's like, why aren't you playing football? What are you doing? Horrible names were shouted at us for playing
And you used to
soccer.
play baseball in Indiana, right?
Yeah, baseball was big, and
I love baseball. That's the only one that I don't keep up with it. I'm bad about that. But when I was a kid, I played baseball. I like to go to baseball games. I enjoyed baseball.
I played Little League. I like everything about baseball. I like the history. I like the mythology. I like all of that. I just don't actually like the game. The game is really boring.
See, that's the only thing I like because I enjoy how much conversation I can have, how much of a social thing it is. You go to a baseball game with somebody and it's like, that's why there's so many great movies, like in scenes where they're at baseball games to have a conversation, because they could go, and then have a 3-minute conversation before there's anything else to react to. It fits in there. You can't have a conversation in a football game. It's like constantly going.
No, something else is or soccer's even worse. You're watching for 90 minutes and that's it. I have a friend, he says, baseball's a perfect game to like grade 2 and do stuff because you've got those moments.
Right.
You're still kind of paying attention.
Yeah.
So
I used to do hockey games too when I was a kid, and that was fun for the same reason of if you were only there to watch them fight, you had enough time to hang out and talk before each one, and you'd get like 8 or 9 in the evening. And that really made it worth going to for me. It was minor league, so they had something to prove.
It's the whole environment. I love it. I love going to the Dash games here.
Yeah, Dash is cool.
And the game doesn't matter.
Right.
But you're hanging out there, and you're kind of getting the food, and you're talking to people. And
your kids like to go to sports games with
you? They do. And my son is really gifted athletically, which is good and bad. He's 10. And my daughter's gifted athletically as far as a runner. She's not very competitive, but she's wicked fast. And so we have
looks
her,
like she would be.
Yeah, she's on a track team now, and that's really awesome. And my son is gifted. The problem is, for both my wife and I, who are very competitive, is we have to be really careful on the sidelines because we're like drunks at a sports bar. It's just awful. It's just like you're just yelling and you're running down the sidelines and you're like just.
Did you get a lot of like dodging glances from
you get people
like,
who are
hey.
like looking at you going, what is your problem? And you're like, so you're trying to rein it in, and you know there's no dimmer switch. It's on or off.
Sure.
And so I love going, and I love kind of watching and that whole experience.
What's it been like as someone who's loved to travel and have all these new experiences to move into settling down since you've had your kids, you've been at the school for a while, and you have actually kind of transitioned out of roving in I'm gonna live there.
This interview is over. I don't. We're done. Okay. Why would you say that? Why would you make me feel bad about myself?
Oh no, I don't mean to do that at all.
The younger me looks at the older me and just goes, "What is your problem?
Really?
What has happened to you? You've sold out. What are you doing here?" But the older me thinks this is a great life. These are really pleasures.
So not a bad place to leave it. What a great dude. Gotta love Joe Mills. He and his wife Danielle are also the co-authors of A Guide to North Carolina Wineries, which you can find, I believe, on Amazon. Dean WILCOX has been teaching at School of the Arts for some time. About 16 years, as a matter of fact. He's got his PhD in Theater History, Theory, and Criticism from the University of Washington, an MFA in Lighting Design from the University of South Carolina, and a BA in Theater Arts from Glassboro State College, which is now Rowan University, which we'll get into all of that in just a second. Some of Dean's courses include his time spent teaching theater history, postmodern drama, avant-garde performance, epic theater, feminist theater, performance art, the aesthetic of dissonance, melodrama, and chaos theory and the arts. He's currently teaching a class right now studying theater of the absurd, which we just had a great conversation about The Rhinoceros, which was done by Ryan LaBar for Keys to the Kingdom. So let's get right into it.
Where am I from? Originally from Chappaqua, New York, and then by way of, 20 different states. I've lived a lot of places.
I did a small amount of research on you. You are a traveler.
Although I've been here for the last 16 years.
Right.
But yeah, no, at one point it was between school and teaching gigs and whatnot. It was bouncing back and forth across the country.
Right, certainly. It seemed to me, and maybe I drawing the wrong conclusion, but it seems primarily East Coast.
Primarily, yes, except for went to Seattle for grad school in the 90s. So.
And did you teach at Texas Tech for a little while?
I did. I was down in Lubbock for 3 years. I taught at UC San Diego for 3 months.
So you get a little bit. You hit all the corners.
You hit the corners and a little bit in the middle. So.
Right. That's the way to do it.
So
you can say you're a well-traveled person. You can't. No one can argue that.
No, we've been around a lot. It's been nice.
So I just talked to Joe Mills recently, and we had a similar conversation regarding the desire to travel young, to be like, I want to get out. I want to get out. I want to go see things. I want to broaden my horizons. And then similarly, found a thing that was like, well, this is worth sticking around for. So I want to say my question to you then is probably what kicked you out of the town you were born in? You know what I mean?
Well, actually, I had help because my dad was a bit of a nomad, and so I was there all the way to end of freshman year in high school. Then he got a job in Connecticut, so we moved to Connecticut. Then he got a job. He was a manager of electronics companies.
Oh, cool.
That's kind of what he did for his thing. Got a job in Connecticut, then got a job in New Jersey. So I ended up going to 3 different high schools. Went to college in New Jersey, and then after that, it was just, my wife and I went to grad school in South Carolina, which was a total gamble. We had no idea. We had no idea that it was going to feel like moving to another country.
You were with your wife. You met your wife in undergrad?
We both went to the same high school. She's 2 years ahead of me.
Gotcha.
So she came back to choreograph one of the shows I was in high school. So I met her there, and then met her again at college. So
there you go.
But we were all through undergrad together and then grad school.
Did you get married in undergrad?
Got married in grad school.
Gotcha.
So.
And that was at USC?
Yeah, in South Carolina. Yeah.
Sweet. Just mentioned Stephen Kopp. He had his first degree from there before he came to the directing program.
Oh, cool.
Incidentally. So then South Carolina, do grad school. What then?
Well, the deal was whoever gets the first job, that's where we go. My wife got a gig up in Mount Holyoke College running the costume shop. And so we were up in Massachusetts for a couple of years. I worked for lighting rental companies. I ended up working as an electrician at a regional theater, Stage West, in Springfield, and decided I got to get more schooling. So we just packed up and moved to Seattle, and we were there for 4 years.
So where's this battle between lighting guy and academic guy, and you're actually also a musician?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
So
you've been just trying to balance all of it the whole time.
Trying to balance it, and I don't know if it's so much of a battle because to me, it's the same question.
Right.
I was when I went to grad school. When I went to school for my PhD, I was a weird mix. They didn't get a lot of people that had lighting design degrees that wanted to do that, but to me, it was all about ideas.
Right.
And so
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I started off in lighting and DMP, and I moved to drama. So
yeah,
totally.
and
and that's like people are like, what?
But it makes sense. It's a logical thing, and from my perspective, I wanted to see as much of theater as I could. So I was an actor for a while, I was a designer, done some directing, dramaturgy, theory, criticism. I want to see from as many angles as I could get.
Right.
But the lighting design thing is, I like the rhythm of it. It's interesting, but it's about problem solving. It's no different from if I write an article on something. It's the same process. It's just shaping the ideas in a particular way.
And you've developed the tools in a certain way where you're like, I know how to do this set of things, and I kind of hit them all the same way.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, it's a lot of it came out of the training I got when I was training for my master's in lighting is a really specific way of working, which I didn't understand at the time. It took me years to figure out, that's how this is crafted.
Right.
But the same system can apply to making music. It can apply to writing an article, and it can apply to, it's a methodical way of working.
When do you think you figured that out?
Actually,
I bet that's not like a thing you figured out day one. You're like, I'll just do all these things the same way. It sounds like a conclusion you've drawn from practice.
Yeah, it is. And it was for me, it was when I started pushing sound around on the computer, I began to recognize, this is exactly the same thing I do as a lighting designer is I need something to react to. I see what I need to do. I shape it. I fix it. I change it. It was the same thing. And it was probably maybe about 8 years ago that I started to recognize, this is how this system works. But I think anybody that studies any artistic process, the first 10 or 15 years, you're just busy absorbing it. You can't think about what it's doing.
Right.
It's only on the backside of that you begin to go, oh, okay, I kind of get how this is. And that's when a lot of people start teaching.
Right.
Is they kind of figure out, oh, this is how this works. So.
And this is how I can, pass that on to somebody else now that I've figured out a way to at least express.
Right. Right.
And that seems to be what teaching is to me. Like, and I've been teaching for the last year, and it'll be about a year and a half that I've been doing it. And it seems to me, at first I thought, I'm so unqualified for this. Because all I did was go learn a thing. I didn't necessarily learn how to teach it to anybody. But I've been doing nothing but engaging in the process of education in the field since I was like 13.
Right.
So for me, it made sense of like, I'll just do an amalgamation of all these different things that I've experienced, the ones I think help me the best, and try to explain the stuff that I think I understand, always qualifying that I don't understand what I'm talking about to a large degree, which I feel like is your responsibility as a teacher to be like, sternly tell them exactly the way the world works, and then at the end be like, but I don't know, it could be whatever.
That's it. Well, and it's I mean, most people aren't taught to teach. They model it after good teachers. And for the first 10 years, I know this is my experience. Joe and I have talked about this. Other people have talked about this. I was terrified somebody's going to open the door and go, you're a sham. You're an idiot. You have no idea what you're talking about. And then eventually I didn't care.
Right.
Because
so we got your evaluations.
Yeah.
And they're dumber.
Yeah,
but that didn't happen.
That's it. Well, no, exactly. Yeah, they went down. They got worse when they studied with you. But I think a lot of people feel that way, and then eventually, it's to me, it becomes about choices. It becomes about ways of thinking. So yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in that conversation to have with students to see where it goes.
So who were your good teachers?
Well, and I mean, there's a ton of people that I would name, but a couple that come to mind is a guy I studied with in my undergrad, Phil Granito, was set designer, cranky, cantankerous, always had a more cigarette hanging out of his mouth. He just seemed irritated by us most of the time, but he was the first teacher I ever met that said, I don't know, that was willing to engage that question of, yeah, I don't have an answer for that.
Right.
Bill Buck was my teacher in graduate school for lighting design, and Bill had gone to the same undergraduate I did, so he was kind of a legend. I knew him before I met him, and Bill was phenomenal as a teacher.
At Rowan University?
He was at
it is now.
Right, as Rowan is now. It was Glassboro at the time, but Rowan University. And Bill was an extraordinary teacher because he made it look effortless. And the thing I loved about Bill as a teacher, which I hated at the time, was he would never give me the answers I wanted. He would make me figure them out.
Right.
And to this day,
that's
it.
The best teachers. I think that's like, you may just hit on the thing.
That's it.
That's what leaves an impression.
Yeah. It's not providing the answers, it's providing the questions. And Bill used to come into the theater and sit behind me when I was designing and just stare up and just sigh. And I would go, what is he saying? What is he saying that I'm missing?
Right.
And to this day, he's still sitting behind me, and I'm going, okay, what would Bill catch that I'm missing?
Right.
And Sarah Bryant Bertai, who I met at South Carolina, where I studied with Bill, brilliant history teacher, criticism teacher, introduced me to feminism, introduced me to Brecht, introduced me to just this world of ideas. And then I went to the University of Washington to study with her. And met another guy by the name of Michael Quinn, who was the most brilliant person I've ever met, who sadly passed away when he was 36, my last year in school. But he was just extraordinary. And when Michael passed away, it really pulled the heart out of our program. It was a very small program. There's only 6 or 7 students in it, and it affected all of us in different ways. But I think about him all the time because he was just one of those just absolutely brilliant super scholar people that seemingly knew everything.
Right.
So at 36.
Anybody who pulls that off, it's always a lie, but it's like...
No, I know, but he was good at it.
But the people who pull that off and make you think they know everything, you're like... And then it becomes fun to test that.
Right.
And then they win.
Yep.
And that's a way to build respect really quick for somebody.
Yeah.
So when did you get to North Carolina?
1999. So we were bounced around a little bit. I was up in Cornell. I had a postdoc fellowship at Cornell. I got to teach there for a year, and then got a teaching gig down in Lubbock at Texas Tech. And then Texas wasn't a great fit for us. It was, I know people love the landscape there. I know they love the area. it was a bit too isolated for us. We were really far from all of our families.
Lubbock sucks, man.
Yeah,
this is as someone who grew up in Austin. I have the right to say it, and you don't have to, hardly upset anybody from Texas Tech. But I grew up like 10 minutes from UT Austin for like a large majority of my childhood, and Lubbock, most of Texas is super lame. It's really boring. Austin's cool.
Yeah,
San Antonio,
cool.
that
Dallas
whole little
cool.
region. There's some cool parts of Dallas and Houston. I've not spent much time at all in like West Texas. I don't know anything about El Paso, Midland, Odessa, or whatever. I imagine it's mostly not great because most of the state's really lame. But Lubbock, can be a drag.
But incredible skies.
Yeah.
And watching a thunderstorm roll in was amazing.
It's insane.
But it was 6 hours from anything.
Right.
Like, I mean, we went to drive to Albuquerque and we thought, we'll get lunch on the way. There is no place to get lunch on the way. There's nothing. 6 hours, there's nothing there. Some place where Billy the Kid died. That's it. Like, if you didn't get a sandwich there, you're going to starve till you get to Albuquerque.
Right.
Weird.
Yeah, no, you definitely went the wrong direction to find what we might call stuff.
That's it.
Yeah, there's no stuff that way.
Good music scene.
Amazing.
Great roots music scene. And I have to say, the students from Texas Tech were amazing.
Yeah.
And
I had a lot of friends who went there. They're really cool people.
But linked into them on Facebook, I get to see them now when they're in their 30s. They're having kids, and they're just a fantastic group.
Yeah.
So
for sure. No, it's a great school. I really like Texas Tech a lot. I know a lot of friends of mine who went there, and it's a great school. But like many schools in Texas, it's in a town that just has nothing else going on.
Not a lot there.
Stephen F. Austin University, which is a state school there in Nacogdoches, which is in East Texas. Some of my favorite people went to that school, and I almost went there myself, and it was so cool. And it was like, not just the state school to go to, it was like a cool state school to go to. And, a lot of people who'd come from that theater program had gone on to do really cool stuff for a state school, and I was like, man, this is going to be the place for me. Nacogdoches. Ooh. 4 years in Nac. It's just like, or anywhere in East Texas.
There
it's just
Lucinda
like,
Williams song about Nacogdoches.
Yeah.
So, but it was for me because it was I was teaching a theater department in Lubbock, and I got hired to teach here, which wasn't a theater department. I was like, I didn't understand the school. It didn't make sense to me the way everything was split
to me,
up.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and so it was, and I spent a lot of time wrestling with, take me out of my comfort zone and take me into a place I'm not familiar with. But it was a great match for us, for the family, but also for me in terms of what they let me teach. Because in Texas, there was certain classes that the theater department was like, well, you can't teach performance art, you can't teach avant-garde, you can't teach... And they weren't interested in them. When I
Knowing
came
you
here,
now, that sounds crazy.
No, but that's the stuff that I really wanted to talk about.
Right.
And so when I came here, I was very nervous that they were going to say don't teach those things. They were like, no, that's why we hired you. So they let me develop chaos theory classes and all this weird performance stuff, which I love.
Right. So you said you've been here 16 years, right? And I want to say, let's see if I can remember this right. I was definitely here. 2012, you get the job you got now, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, and was it Rick Miller had the job before you?
Yes.
So talk to me about that. How'd that happen?
Well...
And what was it like working for Rick and now doing his job?
And actually, I started under Elaine Pruitt, who was Rick's predecessor. And Elaine had asked me to be her assistant dean, which I turned down 3 times.
Wow.
Because I'm not an authority person. I mean, I hate authority, especially my own. So it was like, I don't know. I'm not this person. But to be honest, I was really burnt out from teaching. The teaching load here is really heavy for faculty, particularly for teaching the same thing over and over again. And what was killing me was I'd been teaching theater history for about 10 years, and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Right.
And that's why I was hired here, so I couldn't say, well, I'm not going to teach this. So one way of getting away from the stress of teaching was to go into administration.
Gotcha.
Which makes no sense at all.
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, you gotta do something with your time if you expect to get a check.
That's it.
And if you're burnt out on doing one part of it, then pull your weight some other way.
That's it. So I came in under Elaine, and then I was Rick's assistant for a couple of years, and I said to Rick, look, I'll stay here as an assistant as long as you're doing this. And then the next year he said he was going to retire. And I spent like a year going, do I really want to do this or not? And I came to the conclusion that we had great faculty in liberal arts. They had really good ideas. We were moving in a great direction, and I really didn't want to see somebody from the outside screw it up. So I thought, let me give this a shot. Let me see how this works. And it's been interesting, and I think we've been able to move the program in interesting ways and keep moving it forward. But it wasn't. I mean, talk to anybody about where they end up in their career, and nobody's like, oh yeah, that's definitely where I was. You know, at 20, nobody can ever see where they're going to go.
Sure.
So.
And you're the rebellious young lad in you was like, don't be the boss,
like, what
man.
are you doing, man? Well, and what's weird is...
You look so cool. You look too cool to be a boss.
What happened? How did you get that? And what's weird is my wife's career has been kind of parallel to mine, is that she actually moved into teaching fashion design when she was at Lubbock, Texas, came here to teach at UNCG. She now is a manager for Wrangler in Greensboro.
Cool.
Both of us talk about we're in positions of management. Both of us talk about the fact that we're trained as theater designers makes us better managers. We see how all the pieces fit together. We can make decisions on our feet. You know, that's one of the things that if you're working on a production, you don't have time to dither. You got 35, 40 people waiting for you to make a decision. You can't take 3 or 4 days to make it.
Yeah.
You make it. If it doesn't work, you fix it. You move on.
Yeah. What do you think about people who set out to be in leadership roles versus people who don't? Because, I think about it, and I feel like the people who don't intend to lead end up being the greatest leaders because they simply do what they believe in or what they're working on or they're dedicated to, and they're putting all their soul into that ends up being recognized outside of themselves.
Right.
And they're then nominated to be a leader. And that's who I think we really get the greatest people out of.
Well, and
think about it.
I'm always skeptical of people that are willing to grab that quickly.
Right.
I'll be in charge. And there's some instinct in me that says that's not the person that should be in charge. Right. It should be the person that is reluctant to say, fine, I'll do this, but bringing something to the table. But yeah, that's grabbing for that. I think is tough.
Why do you think?
I think some people do it for the wrong reasons. And I think anybody that wants to be in, and I've worked under, I'm not saying names, but I've worked under people that are really awful managers.
Oh, yeah.
And what I learned from
them.
them.
Most of us can relate because those people do end up with those roles because they snatch them up.
That's it. And what I learned from working under somebody that was bad at that job was, here's how you don't treat people. And if you believe that your job is to force everybody to do what you want to do or to punish them in some way, you're just not the right person for that job.
Right.
Maybe running a prison you'd be good at, but not necessarily motivating people. Because I've seen it happen is bad managers that piss people off lose the faith of the people that are working with them immediately. Right. It's like a bad director.
Yeah.
You watch a production crumble because they're not treating people well.
Right.
So
what makes it so difficult to, and I don't want to sound condescending like I have it figured out because I don't think I'm always perceptive to how everybody feels or anything, but some people do really seem to be impervious to the needs of others and acknowledging that, like, sometimes a rehearsal room, for example, just stinks of people not wanting to be there.
Yeah. And
I feel like most directors, not even good ones, most directors can smell it and be like, oh, okay, we got to do something. Let's do it. Let's scrap today's whatever and talk, or let's scrap today's whatever and do a exercise or an activity. Let's shake it up. Because with the train we're moving on right now, it does not seem like it's going to lead us to one place.
Right.
But some people don't even notice.
Yeah.
It just gets by them. And someone's got to tap them on the shoulder and be like, hey, the room stinks, man.
Yep.
And we got to do something about it.
Yeah, but that's what's nice is if you've got people that can be honest that way.
Right.
And
that's tough with the boss.
It's very difficult, and it's a difficult situation. But it's the same situation I think. The same situation I would face as a designer is there's certain people whose opinions I'm going to listen to, that when they go, dude, this is terrible, I'm going to say you're absolutely right. So like if Bill Buck's voice is behind me, dude, what are you doing here? This is awful. And then I go, yeah, I got to fix this. But some people do it for the wrong reasons. Some people will do it because they think they can get power or change the dynamic or benefit themselves. But yeah, that's a tough situation for somebody to recognize that and then say, there's a different way to do this. That's hard.
Do you ever get too touchy with the stuff you make?
In
You know what I
terms of-
mean? Like, in terms of, like, are you really protective of your art? You know, if you're doing a lighting design and people challenge you, or if you do, you know, any other piece, if you write an article and somebody really hates it, like, are you a sensitive guy about that kind of stuff?
I'm more protective about the wording on an article than I am about a design. Because as a design, I'm hired to do a job. And part of that job is the client who's the director, the producer. Part of my job is how to work with them. And so I'm not going to stand in the theater and bully them and say, no, you got to go this way. Because honestly, it's a losing battle.
Right.
And so, but if I'm writing an article, it drives me crazy that an editor will change my wording.
Right.
Because to me, that's mine and mine alone. Like, I'm going to protect that. But
Right.
but anything in the theater, I'm sharing that with God knows how many people.
Right.
I can't own it the way I can own something that I produced by myself.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like, you know, I feel like anybody who's good is a little sensitive. You know, you get to be because you make things enough times that really work.
Right.
And then you feel proud about why they worked and what you did to contribute to that. So when you go to the next thing, you're like, oh, this is a strength of mine.
Right.
And if that particular part of what you were doing is called into question, you're like,
Yep.
hey, this has worked before.
Yeah. But I've worked with directors before where they said this isn't working.
Right.
And at that point I have to say, well, why? What is it about that's not working? Because part of my job is to solve that problem, rather than saying, oh, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. But you know, to be honest, very few directors I work with know a ton about lighting.
That's probably great.
But they know it's dark, it's the wrong color, it doesn't feel right. I mean, and that's what I'm really looking for.
Right.
Are those things. And actually, I said this to Gerald Friedman. I get to work with him as a dramaturg and as a lighting designer, but I said, I would much rather have a conversation with you as a director than show you a picture.
Right.
Because you can misinterpret a picture and I can misinterpret a picture, but if we can get to the root of it with the language, then I have a chance to fix it.
It's funny they say that, you know, that picture's worth 1,000 words thing, but it's like they go unsaid.
Yeah.
So it's like it's worth 1,000 words to whomever may look at that picture.
Right.
But that's not, you know, a conversation, which one of the things I loved about Gerald's program is we spent a whole section of third year just talking about visual art.
Right.
And nothing else. Every single day in directing class, it's, you know, we're looking at these paintings, we're looking at this sculpture. Why? What did he do? You know, he believed, and I think he's right, that is a fundamental part of making any kind of art. Is visual art really is at the core of the aesthetic notion.
Yep.
The idea of what something is made out of and why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this here and there? It's so much easier to examine than any other medium, I think.
Yep.
You know, even music, it's like you got to have an ear for music to really talk about it.
Yep.
You know, to be like, oh, look, it's dissonant. You know, and
Yep.
someone's like, I don't know what that means. Like, oh, we can't talk about it. But if you and I are looking at a painting and like, man, it's really damn red.
Yep.
you know, it's like you could agree on that.
Well, but
It's the same vocabulary.
And this, I love working with other designers and working with directors that use paintings, sculptures, music. It's a place to start the conversation.
Right.
And I want to go beyond that to talk, well, what do you see in this painting or what do you get out of it? But they're great touchstones, I think, for emotion and for feeling.
Definitely. I feel like, and I want to share this with you, I'm sure you remember, and this is like the moment that I think of is like, well, that's Dean WILCOX doing his thing. We, many years ago, hosted a game on campus called Humans versus Zombies.
I loved that.
And John Bowers and I put that together with a bunch of other really awesome people. And I think we did it twice. We were going to do it a third time, and it just got overcomplicated through the school and the way they wanted us to handle it and all that. But and we were also getting farther along in the program. We were like, we don't have time. So it, you know, it didn't continue. But we asked you to, not even in a, I don't even think it was an official capacity, be a faculty advisor or anything. That happened the second game. But the first game, we were just like, we just need your help.
Right.
Like as a person, another person on this campus, we think you would appreciate this kind of thing. And I know John spoke to you directly about getting involved. And then we kind of made up this character for you to portray. And then you showed up in fatigues, which was cool. And we didn't know what's going to happen. And we were like, we cast him as the general. And then he actually showed up dressed like one. It was so cool. And the moment that I want to remind you of that was so, to me, just quintessential was we were like leading, our whole plan was to lead the kids into this trap over the bridge. And we very specifically, like game designers do, kind of built the maze around the kids. We sent them over here to get this thing arbitrarily so that they'd have to come back across the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And you were with that particular group, which I don't even think was either, maybe it was, I think that was the original plan. And they were stuck up there, and they were supposed to come across the bridge because we really needed to thin the herd out, like game dynamically. It was like there's too many humans left alive. We need to like cut it in half. So we're gonna tell all the zombies that the humans are coming, and plant them on this hill so that they'll catch them on the bridge. And we sent them up to the gazebo, and you were with them, and you were like, yeah, screw this. There might be a trap on the bridge. Let's walk down Sunnyside and go in the front entrance. And we were like, damn, like you're on our team of the game creation people.
But
and
you
just
didn't
led
tell
them
me
around.
what your plan was.
Yeah, I know. We did because we never thought that you would break the like basic boundary of the campus and go around.
Well,
but it worked out so great, and we ended up doing something else. It was fine, but it was a great moment for John and I being like, he just outside the boxed us.
He just left.
Literally, he walked outside of this thing that it was no barrier. Why did we assume he wouldn't go that way?
But I was convinced that sidewalk was part of the campus. Like we weren't violating the rules.
Right.
We were still within the periphery, and you could still see us, even though you couldn't reach us because there was a fence in the way.
Right.
But what I didn't realize was it doesn't matter anyway because we're gonna come out the other side and people are just gonna be waiting for us there.
Right. And we realized in time to be like, all right, everybody get up from your awesome hiding spots because it was gonna be like the hills came alive. They were everywhere. They were peppered all over.
You
that
should have
mountain.
told me.
I know. We were young and dumb.
And I would have led them into their slaughter.
Sure.
That would have
that's the way it
been
was supposed
equally
to go.
as entertaining.
Right. And you could have died.
That would have been fun. But see, what I loved about that game was it animated the campus in a really dynamic way. And you had, I mean, we're a very fragmented campus.
Yeah,
and it's
big time.
when people, I mean, people are busy 16 hours a day, so there's never anybody outside. And so what I loved about the game was it animated those public spaces in really interesting ways.
Thank you so much to my guests, Joe Mills and Dean WILCOX. Thank you so much for listening. And, just go ahead and like and subscribe and share this thing. Hit the like button and subscribe. It's right there. Just click it.
So I've been reading about nameless things. Don't ask me what they are.